Alright, welcome everyone. Today, as usual, we're gonna try to solve some coding problem, hopefully under 40 minutes. Hopefully. This stream is for entertainment purposes, and let me just. Alright. With that being said, let's see what's the problem we've got today. So, for the past several times, we usually got easy problems. So wonder if we will have the hard problem this time. Pick one. All right, it's a medium one, and many people like it. So you are given an integer array, all right, and an integer target. You want to build an expression out of these numbers by adding one of the symbols plus and minus before each integer in nums, and then concatenate all the integers. For example, if nums 2 and 1, you can add plus before 2 and minus before 1 to concatenate them to build the expression plus 2 minus 1. Return the number of different expressions that you can build which evaluates to target. So why on earth they tell us about this concatenation and stuff? I don't understand. I mean, you can say easily return the number of ways you can add them or subtract them, the numbers in this one, in a way that the overall result is the target. All right, so what do we know? Let's switch to the whiteboard and go through example 1. So all numbers are positives from 0 to 1000. Their sum from 0 to 1000 and the target between minus 1000 and 1000. All right, so let's see. So the brute force method is simple. For every number we can either add plus or minus, so we can either add it or subtract it, right? So the overall number of candidates is the size of the nums is 20. So the overall number of potential combinations with integers, like how many total numbers we can get by summing them or subtracting them or whatever, is obviously 2 to the power of 20, which is a lot. So it's not good. But we don't need all of them. We need only target, right? And what do we know? That So basically we can reverse the task actually because they're symmetrical. So instead of so for every target at every step we can either add integer, add num, or subtract num, right, until we get target equals 0. Then we stop, right? So the problem with that and we also know what are those integers, right? So based on the constraints, I would imagine it's dynamic programming. Let me check in the related topics. Yes, and depth first search. Okay. I mean, I do see depth first search. You take the first number, you subtract it from target, and you call two possible options, either plus or minus the next element, and so forth, right? If subtracting next element will result in the negative target, right, then you only add to the target and vice versa. And once you hit successfully the last element by adding concatenate and it's 0, then you add to overall thing. But obviously yeah, I mean, dynamic programming. So hate these dynamic programming questions. Unless you find the key, you won't be able to solve it. But once you find the key, the coding challenge is trivial. All right. Let's switch to the whiteboard. Let's see. So if it's dynamic programming, right? Okay, let's imagine that our target is 100. Now our current expression is added to 97 and we have the last element of 3. And obviously we should add it, right? If sum is 103 and our target is 100, then obviously we need subtract 3. You know, other cases, this is not a valid option, right? So I guess this is how we do it, right? So we start. And if the preceding element is 5, so then we have 4 potential sums, right? So it's exponentially going different ways, right? I mean, I can write easily the exponential version of the algorithm. It's straightforward, but I think there should be something with guarantees, something polynomial, because it's integer and it's so let's go to this example 1 actually. Let's write the example 1. So you see this thing, right? They write it exactly 5 times because you can move. Basically, to get these 3, you need sum all of them but subtract 1, right? And then obviously the combination is just moving minus for every 1. So if we have more elements, and this, so this is a special case, obviously it's understandable. And if it's -3, it will be the same, but with reverse, right? So it's also 5. So the sign of the target, it really doesn't make any difference, although it can be -1,000 or 1,000. So we may not bother with the sign here. We can just focus on positives 1 and positive target. So imagine that we first sum all of these numbers and then subtract from the positive target, right? So we have this difference. This difference tells us of the sum of the elements, right? That we should use to get with the opposite signs, like with negatives. And quite frankly, the formula will be then So we can do the histogram, right? We need 2 2s, 1 1, or actually it's not necessarily a strict one. Oh man. And this is media problem, so it should be quite obvious. But again, once it goes to dynamic programming, until you know the key solution to this, then once you know the key is trivial, obviously, and you can say, oh yeah, it's just depth first search combination is something, and it's easy to understand. But to solve it will take a while, so it's not easy to fit in 30 minutes in this case. Right, so let's consider our own solution and return to the whiteboard. So let's imagine that we have numbers like, I don't know, 1, 2, 3, 3, 5, 5, 6, 6. Again, order in this string does matter, so we can sort them. Oh, actually, this is the good one to start, right? So we can sort these elements actually. This is nice. So if we sort them, and because we know they're positive, and we sort them, we have some benefits, I would say. All right. Okay, so the target is, in this case, let's say 20. Have no idea how to get it. So we sum all of the elements here. We get that the sum of all elements, and again we said if it's minus 20, it's the same as 20 in terms of number of operations. So the sign for the target doesn't matter. We can just take absolute. The result will be the same. So sign of t doesn't matter. All right, so we got this. All right, so sum here is 2, 6, 9, 19 plus 12, 31. All right. Let's go. So 12, 22 plus 6, 28, 30, 31. Yes. So the diff is 11, right? So they're sorted. Now, how can we get 11? So we can get it like this. Or I guess we can get it like this. Or like this. Like this, right? All of which are combinations that can add up to something. So zeros definitely doesn't make any sense to change the sign. We don't count zeros in the array. We can skip them. Or maybe they do add up, so we should take them into account too. So we should say that 11 can be formed as something here, right? And then we count the number of such occurrences, or in this case maybe it doesn't really matter. Maybe we can just focus on 20 then. It sounds like the same. You found this 11, the difference between the sum of all of the elements and those that might need to change the sign, and then based on how many of those elements we can compute the number of combinations. In our case we can just directly, because it's still basically the same algorithm, right? We can just find all numbers that need to be considered to add up to 20. Or it feels like even when we try to solve, let's say, example 1 or example 2, we basically do the same thing, right? We first sum all of the numbers, and then we see which one All right. So I got it. So let's compute the difference first. All right. And compute the 1001 number of we can either use map, but again, because we know we can have a vector of integers from 0 to something 1001, and then just compute number of occurrences there, because the length is just 20. So yeah, the length is just 20, so maybe it doesn't make sense to have. Yeah, let's have a map then. All right, so we map each integer to the way how many times it occurs, and then we compute the overall sum by just multiplying every unique integer in the matrix to the times it occurs and edit the overall sum. Then we subtract it from target, take absolute difference, check which numbers are so if this difference is positive, meaning that difference between the sum of all elements in the array minus target minus absolute amount of target, right, is positive, greater than 0, then we return none. Otherwise, we return the same element. We return 1. All right, sounds like a plan. And once we have it, right, once we have this difference, then we need calculate all the elements that can add up to 11, right, which sum adds to this difference. So find all elements, find all combinations, right, combinations that which sum is 11. Once you have these combinations, you can compute how many of them can be. Let's say the first one, 1, 2, 3, and 5, right? We have 2 5s, 2 3s, 1 2, and 1 1. So obviously the number of combinations here, we can use 1 2 3 5, or we can use 1 2 3 5. We can use 1 2 3 5, right? So the overall is just multiple of this 1 times 2 times 2, so it's 4, right? So this one with this one, or this one this is 2, or this one with this 3, and this 5, and then this 5, right? So this is simple. So the question is how we create these combinations, right? If you have combinations, then it's easy to add up. And combinations, in order to have these 11, well, but this is on the sum, right? So it's easy. You can just start with the element and depth first search to the next element. If it adds to the sum, they return true. If not, then all right. So I see. All right, find combinations is the question. Combo question. So we have something in between. So let's see. We've got 20 minutes to code. Let's try to code it. Right. So we start. Pretty straightforward. Loaded map of int to int, let's call it hist, and we have no idea what the size is. So obviously for nums in for const auto num in nums, we do this, right? We just say hist num plus plus. And I guess we can save a little bit. We can just use unsigned integer because we know it's 1000, so it should be 16 t. So we save 2 bytes from every entry. So it's not 8 bytes, it's 6 bytes, whatever. So once we have it, then we compute the sum. And then we do for const auto this way, right? Say num cnt in hist, and then we have sum plus equal num times cnt. Then we compute the diff in diff equal to sum minus absolute target if diff equals 0. So it's not the case, right? It's not the case because we might have some zeros in nums, right? And those zeros can be either positives or negatives, and you can add 0, subtract 0, it's 0, it doesn't change the sum. But all other elements should be added to hit the target, or subtracted to hit the target. And zeros can be varied. So in this case, we should return 1 plus is it times so if you have 0 zeros, then it's just 1. If you have at least 1 0, it can be either plus 0 or minus 0, so it's 2 already, right? So and if we have 2 zeros, this creates 4 combinations. It's 2 to the power of the zeros, right? Because it can be either this or this one. Yes. So if we have 1, it's 2 to the power of we have 0 is just 1. We have 1, there are 2. Alright, so if it's 0, then if we have 0 zeros, it's 1 combination. If we have 1 0, it's 2 combinations. If we have 2 zeros, it's 4 combinations, right? So we say hist 0. So if it's 0, then we return 1. Otherwise, pow 2 is 0, right? 2 to the power of 0 is 1, right? So we can just return this thing. Yep. So this was special case, right? And then else. So we know damn well that this difference is now obviously positive, right? So we need to see which sum adds up to instant t equals 0, and then we return to instant t, right? And so now we need the DFS. So the DFS will be in a sense that from every element we go to the next one, I would say. All right, so yeah, let's do. So it will be quadratic, but again, due to the size of the nums, it should be fine. So let's do DFS, and do the private, it will return int, it will be DFS, it will be what? It will be, let's say, nums, as const, we don't change it. It will be const hist, it will be int start, technically we don't need to go through the nums, we need to go through the hist, right? So so technically we should go through to the next unique element right here, right? So to find such combination, we need elements like, we need at least like 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, right? Well, we can do this. It's not the problem. So we already have the key. So all we need to say is this, right? So yeah, we can create a vector of int. We can say sorted. We first do this thing and just say sorted. Sorted push back what num, right? And then we say what? Then we say sorted begin sorted and right. And now we can have this vector, you can say const unique, const hist, and start. All right, so and we also need int diff, right? But which one? Oh. So we say if diff minus unique start equals 0, right? So we return so this is multiplication of this thing, so we should return the just hist start. All right, if start is greater or equal to unique size, will be the case. I don't think so. Right. All right, I need to think on these exit conditions. Okay, let's see here. Then we say that we should for int I equal start plus 1, right? I less than unique size. So for each consecutive element, I plus plus. So what do? We return his start times dfs times dfs DFS unique hist I and diff minus unique start, right? Okay. So if diff minus unique start less than 0, return 0. So then it cancels out the entire pass to this one. Alright, if it's 0, then return hist, and then you return the valid pass, which will be the combinations of the elements from the hist to this guy. So let's return to the whiteboard quickly. We're sort of running out of time, but basically what's left here is basically this, right? So for int I in sorted, we say cnt plus equal DFS sorted hist I and diff. So now let's focus on debugging this function, and then we can still claim that we are fine. I think we can say something like this: int cnt equals 0, right? Then we say cnt, or we can say yes, cnt plus equal to this one, right? And then we return cnt. So I think this is how it should work. So let's switch back to the whiteboard and see in the example, let's say of what, 5 and 6, right? So we continue with this example we had, and now we need just to debug our DFS function to solve this problem. Not quite sure if dynamic programming, definitely we use depth research. I'm not sure where the dynamic programming part comes from. So, but what do we know? Okay, so we have unique array of 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, right? Because it's a unique elements, right? So, or let's imagine we also have 4, right? So we might have 1, 4, and 6, or we can have 1, 2, 3, and 5 to get 11, right? All right. Or we also can have 1, 5, 5, right? Which is not in the unique version. Interesting. So this one I didn't get into account, the fact that we may reduce multiple elements in the same array. So in this case we don't really need the histogram actually. We just don't. All we need is just to sort the nums, and that's it. We still may want to count number of zeros just to get the special case, but other than that, oh yeah, we may also have zeros there, so it's like 0 0 0 0 0 can be plus and minus, but we don't care, so it's okay. All right, so let's count 0 separately. All right, so we already ran out of time, so we failed to solve it under 40 minutes, so let's just try to solve it. So we said we don't need this crap. Let's remove it, and let's sort it no matter the price of sorting. Nums begin, nums end. This is because it's dynamic programming problem. When it's dynamic programming problem, literally you have no idea what you're doing unless you accidentally find the key, and then it becomes crystal clear how to solve this problem. So we sort it, then we say sum, which is just num in nums, and then we say sum is just num, and we also, let's say, int zeros equals 0. All right, so if num equals 0, we say zeros plus plus, right? So we have it now. We say the difference between these and absolute. If it's 0, then return power of zeros here. Else we say CMT. I don't need sorted, they're already sorted, so it's extra. We don't need to say unique, we just say nums. Nums, we know that they're sorted, that's the difference, right? So it will be just times diffs. So it's nums. We don't need hist at all. We need what hist in the sense that we don't need hist at all. So it's just I. And difference minus nums start. Right. This is over return 1. Then this is how we count it. And obviously 0 won't affect the sum, right? So we say it's not sorted, it's nums here, and then we say if I equals 0, we can actually say num. No. It's not like this, it should be 0, I less than num size. We need the index, not the actual number here. If nums I equals 0, then we say continue because we don't care, right? And then we just search for the difference to be 0. So this is the valid combination, we add it. If not, we don't add it. Like in this case, we go from 1, right? So let's switch to the whiteboard. Let's say we might have somewhere 4 here. Oops. A little bit less here, and use okay. So let's say that here 4. So we can go from 1 to 4. We can go from 1 to 2. All right. From 2 we can go to 3. or to these three, and actually 4 should be in between, but it doesn't matter. Should it be sorted at all then? I just wonder. What's the point of sorting then? Yeah, I don't think we need to sort it. Maybe I thought initially we needed, but it seems like we don't. Or actually, you know what? We just need to return. Yeah, alright, let's keep it. That's okay. I thought of adding star to -1 in this case, obviously. Ah, that's why. So we skip zeros, right? Because this doesn't add anything, and there are always a valid combination, so we can get rid of them. All right. So then this will be CMT. Here's the diff. We don't need hist. We don't have sorted. We have nums that are sorted now. And yeah, the diff is the diff. All right, and then we say CNT times power of 0. So if we have no zeros, then it's the number of CNTs. Otherwise, it's the all right. So I see. So it seems like we don't need these two, because if we have all elements just one combination, right? So the difference is 0. Okay, let's keep it then. So the difference is some positive element. Yeah, right, let's run it. I'm not sure if it works at all, but let's see if it works in example 1. Maybe we can pass some tests. So let's switch to default scene. Debug some here. Yep, no any more unique. Output 10, expected 5. Interesting. See out. Num we output num start, then we output diff equal to diff. So obviously the diff at the beginning should be just 2, right? Because target is 3 and we have sum of 5. let's put the div, but I, which is start. So we start with 0. Obviously, the first two elements will add up, the second element will add, the third element will add, the fourth element. Right. Then we start with 2. So we basically say we might have -1, oh wait a second. The div should be 0. We should really divide the difference in such a way that two elements will yes, it should be div divided by 2, that's why. If let's see, I mean in this case it will work, but I'm not sure what if it's odd. Let's say if it's 3. Alright, anyway, let's see. Alright, in this case it works obviously. But we don't know if it works in general, most likely not. Let's see how many tests will pass. Yes, it says input, output 1, expected 0. Interesting. Interesting. Why it's expected 0? I guess we never had this, right? So since it should stay 0, then no zeros too. So if div is negative, right? If div less than 0, return 0. I think that's why. So submit. Output 1. Interesting. So, alright, my Wi-Fi is that too. Sounds like. So seems here is, so we have one element, so the sum is 1. 1 minus 2 is -1. Divided, alright. Let's do this then. Output 40, expected 0. Interesting. Let's also print C out. So diff is what should be killed is diff, right? And then but that's okay. It works sometimes, not always, but sometimes, and it still says expected 0. This because there is no diff 53. Okay, there is no way you can kill it. Yes. So right, if diff less than 0 or diff %2 equals 1, right? So it's odd. Then there's no way we can kill it. I guess. Probably. Let's check. All right, we passed. Ho ho ho. So few corner cases and we've done such a tremendous job. So this DFS is quadratic thing, obviously. We run it here, and so here is force cycle, and here is force cycle, right? And in every force cycle, we call it force cycle. So if it's 20, this is 19, then 18, then 16, so force, right? So it's technically not, but whatever, it passes. But we're gonna do how and why. Submit one more time. The score is still very low for memory and everything. Let's submit a few more times to see what's the best things we can get, the best scores here. All right, I'm taking this one. So let's switch to the whiteboard. We saved because in this case it was just 20 elements in the array. But damn, it's very weird task. So we've got 25 time. Seriously? Come on. We've got 25 here. The 72 here. So total is 97. But we were run out of time, so we are not so happy. Oops. Alright, now let's quickly check what's the right dynamic programming solution was. Obviously the one we never figured out. Dynamic programming simple solution. Of course it's supposed to be simple. What are you talking about? If sum less than target or sum plus long target %2 is 1, yeah, so it's going to return 0. That's the special case. We figured it out. That's cool. All right, so sum plus target by 2, it says 1. So then we have vector of n plus 1 elements. All right, and s plus 1 in terms of so the dynamic programming starts, everything is 1 at the 0, right? And then for every So the average between the sum and so let's understand this. Right, so the target in example 1 was 3 and the sum was 5, so it's 8 divided by 2 is 4, right? So we need to get 4. Then we say that for every n, right? Not sure what it represents. Is 1 at the 0, sum 1, and the sum 1 is 0, right? Which means, I don't know what it means, but if for every next element from 1 to s to 1, which is in our case from 1 to 4, all right, we say that 0i is 0, okay, so we initially sit and have the dynamic programming matrix, and then we dynamic programming, basically in this case we say that, okay, for every integer in nums, right, so taking none of them is 0, and all of the elements is 1, which I have no idea what it is, but whatever. So for every number in nums, and for every potential sum of these numbers, right, that should add up to this average one, we should say that if j minus nums I minus 1, which is to get the number itself less than 0, then it's equal to the previous number, and if it's first element in nums and it's less than 0, then it's equal to 0. All right, so we don't take it basically. Otherwise it's ij, and then we add to the previous element with j plus previous element times the difference to the average. All right. Yeah, still not quite, but here is the key here, right? If you didn't get. So if we understand that key, and I guess if you go through a few examples and compute this thing, you will get the key, and then the dynamic programming solution will be easy. All right. At least we solved it, and almost in time. Maybe off by 20 minutes for debugging, but that's okay. So let's stop here and see you tomorrow.